Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Computer Wednesday, we're gonna talk about Windows on ARM. So let's dive right into it. Now first you have to understand what exactly is the problem that Windows needs to switch, quote unquote. Well, there has been a very long period of stagnation. Generally people say it started to appear around 2010 and it was like really bad by 2015, meaning processors were barely growing in percentage. Now again, Intel will show you this sort of graph. Yeah, we are going better, but in reality was not. It was like, 14 nanometer, 14 nanometer plus, 14 nanometer plus plus, and 10 nanometer which failed became again 14 nanometer plus plus plus. So reality was it was really not good growth in the PC industry. No, so basically PC went from 512 MB RAM to 2 GB to 4 GB to 8 GB to 16, and it kind of stagnated. It's like 16 is more than enough. Same happened with core structures, one core to dual core to quad core. Then it's because softwares could not keep up. So there was a very serious period of stagnation. Now that time Intel was the only person who can build x86 properly, and AMD was unable to perform well. Flat out they were not good enough at that point in time. So x86 was growing, but it was growing in percentage, meaning it's 10% better, 20% better. That was happening. However, ARM during this time, basically from 2010 to 2020, you can see the difference. Basically if I give you 2010 mobile phone with ARM processor versus what can I give you now, it's like night and day different. The performance growth here happened in multiples, meaning it went from 2x to 4x to 8x to 16x to 32x. It's like ludicrously high speed development happened. And x86, meaning Intel also tried to go into mobile market, but they flopped hard, and they did not even try to put brute force it into success. They could do that, but they did not. They were like, yeah, it's not growing, and it's like, yeah, let's let it go. So reality was this was a really bad time for x86, while there is a competition slowly growing up. Many people kind of predicted it very long ago. It's like, the way the trajectory, sometimes you can predict trajectory reliably. And once you do that, you can be like, yeah, someone else has better trajectory than you. So why don't Windows just switch? Why don't just Windows become like Android or iOS? Why don't they do that? But here's the deal. Many times people Apple is so amazing, so this and that and M1 and all that. Apple is a very small company. I'm not talking about evaluation. I'm talking in terms of unit used in this real world. I'm not talking valuation of $2 trillion. I'm talking just like how many actual hardware is deployed in the world. That's very small, especially in PC space. How small? Apple almost went bankrupt and Microsoft had to bail Bill Gates out. Microsoft has to bail Steve Jobs out. Like that actually happened. That's how bad they were. Like their iPhone is ludicrously successful, but everything else was like barely there. And Apple, because they are such tightly integrated and such a small niche kind of environment, they already have an experience of switching ISA, and they switch it like in the outside world. They will oh, you can, we'll carry you forward. No, it's like, either you move forward or you'll get left behind. It has happened when they switch from Motorola to IBM. Then the same thing happened from IBM to Intel, and same thing is happening from Intel to in-house chip right now. Outside world, it's like this time thankfully the translation layer is actually good. Again, they have tried like 3-4 times, so hopefully they have learned their lesson and make good translation layer. But if you do not upgrade with that, Apple will simply let you go. It's like, bro, bye, because Intel chips will not be used any further in the future, so you have to switch. It's not optional. However, Windows and x86, they are two different things, meaning they are two independent ecosystems who are married together, and their marriage is surprisingly strong. Now, what does that mean? That means it has survived for decades, not 1 decade, not 2 decades, not Motorola, IBM, Intel, in-house, all along x86. So that means they have ludicrously large, also for x86 and for the software, large legacy support. How large? Idiotically large. Like, you would be surprised how old of a printer you can connect to your system and it will still work. Like, you would be surprised like how old this sort of system. And during Corona, many times you have heard news where software is becoming the limitation because people were using 1970s software, like not 70s, but early 2000 2005 software. And what those softwares were? Windows softwares. So commercial enterprises and enterprises and industrial world, they do not like to change. If something is working, basically if there is a machine that the controller is running on Windows, they will not tamper with it. If there is a server running on Windows server, they will not tamper with it. So that creates a scenario where there is not incentive to change. And not to mention, in terms of number, it's in billions of customers. Yes, there is only few billion people on this earth, and somehow Microsoft managed to sell billions of computers, and that's why Bill Gates is so rich. So you get that point. Like, and these people are what we call high value customers, meaning they're not going to give you barely any profit on your per sale. They're going to give you GG amounts of money. Consequence, you have to take care of them. So that's why it's a serious issue for Windows to change anything. Like, they have to be very thorough about things. That's why they are not like yearly updates. That's why each updates take their seriously long amount of time. And to give you a easier visualization to understand what the heck is happening, think of it this way. How easy it is to change your car versus how it is to change an entire nation's railway. Again, even if you have a better railway system, better, let's say, gauges, better locomotive, better electrical system, everything, you will still not change it because it's just too much hassle to change the old work. Same thing is a big issue with Microsoft. Microsoft is stuck in a scenario where they have commercial sector, enterprise sector, industrial sector. They are all working well. They are making money. So why would you change it? That's the issue. And they are not like, cool people. They are like, dude, we do the work. We make sure the electrical grid works. We make sure the hospitals work. So these sort of people is not something that you can troll around. And you can even get sued if you troll around them. So what can Microsoft do? Well, Microsoft has to try a parallel attempt where there's like, we have x86, we have to develop ARM also. Now, every time they try to develop ARM, which mind you, they tried with very early on, like much before Apple even thought of doing this with Intel I'm saying basically Windows RT. And even before that, they had a history of porting Windows to low power devices. So they know what they're doing, but problem was always chicken and egg. What does that mean? That simply means, think of it this way. If you're a customer, you have to buy, basically a company has to sell a lot of hardware, and then only people can buy software in them. Okay, that makes sense. So basically you sell a lot of Android, then people buy softwares, basically apps on App Store. If there is not enough Android, there is no point in it. So that's the step one. There has to be enough people with enough hardware, then buying software is a real thing. And without a software ecosystem, meaning if you don't even have apps in your App Store, why would anybody would buy the hardware? That creates a chicken and egg scenario. That happened with Windows mobile phone. They were like, they tried to flood the market with the system, but they did not have enough app. That created a scenario where enough new people did not join in because, hey, you don't already have all the apps that I'm seeking. Then it created a feedback loop where like it failed. So without sale potential, like unless you know for a fact that there will be billions of sale on this new hardware, why would anybody port it? Why would anybody is like, hey, we're gonna port our let's say Adobe suite for Microsoft SQ1 processor? They did not, and that created an issue. That's the chicken and egg scenario. It's like somehow Microsoft has to sell billions of these, so our developers will port it, but somehow people have to see the fully built ecosystem, software ecosystem, app ecosystem before they buy this. You see, there is a chicken and egg scenario. It happens. It's one of those things that it's common. It happens with console, happens with mobile ecosystem. It's one of those things that does happen. So, and there is another aspect. Windows is far more modular, meaning it's supposed to run on x86, and x86 should be provided by two main processor vendor, meaning AMD and Intel, and there should be multiple partners, basically ASUS. After ASUS, you can have basically Compact PC used to be there. Then you have Dell, then you have HP, then you have Lenovo. All these vendors will do the final packaging and give it to you. Because of this modular approach, you can't just change something on the top. It has to follow down to the bottom of the stack. That creates a problem. Windows will be like, go to ARM. Everyone would be, why? Why would I port? Basically, why would Adobe port their software to run on this? And why would HP support this? That created a feedback loop. That's why even though they have tried it long ago and many times ago, they have always failed because of this chicken and egg scenario. So what tools they have deployed now to save it? Well, reality is iOS and Android right now is becoming what we classify as dominant computation platform. What does that mean? That simply means if you take computation that's happening on the customer end, remove the server, customer end, I mean like person interacting with a piece of computer where it's doing things, majority of them is happening in iOS and Android. Android is the majority in that. So that creates a scenario where ARM and Apple, they are becoming real threat. They are no longer just like, oh, something small and niche. Nah, they're big, they're serious. And if they really do not take care of it, meaning Microsoft does not take care of it, they could become obsolete. So x86 and Windows are at risk of if they do not basically adopt it. Now, another issue is that Microsoft does not control x86. Microsoft can talk with Intel, but they do not control it. They can talk. It's like, hey, bro, drop your chase for new performance, focus on performance per watt. Intel could be like, yeah, bro, but we will focus on more game FPS. Then what the hell you can do? So that creates a scenario where only option Microsoft has is switch to ARM. Basically, like we have the x86 product stack taken care of. How about we go back to create a new software stack for ARM? They have to do it. That's the only way to adapt, because if x86 goes down, they do not want their multi-billion-dollar company to go down with it. So what does that mean? That simply means they have to sell what we call loss leading products, meaning these things will not make money. For example, PS3, during the early few years, it was loss leading product. It is one of those things that has been done many times in the industry to get your product through the door, so to say. So they have tried it many times, and this is their latest innovation. And I would personally urge you to watch the trailer, because this Project Volterra trailer is like god tier level. Like, I don't give a damn about the performance of the hardware or the quality of the hardware. A, majority of them have not shared. B, it's like, it's so goddamn good. It's like, forget Avatar. Like, that's how good it is. Like, just watch it, enjoy it. It's like somebody is like, you want quality? Yes. How much? Yes. Just they went YOLO on it. It's really, really good. So they have to sell what we call loss leading products. They have to create complete and polished software stack, which was a big issue earlier than recent few years ago. They were making 32-bit only. It's like, what the hell? World has moved to 64. Why you are still creating 32-bit only? So now they are creating a software stack that is fully supported with 64-bit support, true 64 native bit support. So that should make software stack development much easier, and they are making developer kits that are far more attractive. So that's what they are trying to sell to the public. If this unit starts to sell, even as just as a LOL equipment, it's a good start. If it must happen, without it, they're like back into chicken and egg. This must work. That's why they are developing Visual Studio 2022, which has all the support natively built in. And many people on the video commented that if it runs Visual Studio as well as they are showing in the trailer, we're gonna buy it without even thinking about it, just for the Visual Studio, because again, it is used as for product development. So if it is true, people will buy it. People will buy it. More software will be developed for it. That will start to get the things rolling. Once they have things rolling, they can build up momentum. So these are the tools, and I would urge you, just watch the damn video. It's awesome. So what we can hope, or what Windows is hoping, there are few pathways. Pathway number one is to basically, if you want high performance, meaning if you want to run a render farm, because I have seen many Hollywood studio, which on their studio, you go there, they're like apples everywhere. But here's the deal: where do their final VFX works? All the works are shown to either China or India. And Indian studio, I have been to there, and there was like, yeah, it's HP, Lenovo, Dell. It's common. It's one of those things that from the outside it's like a Mac. In real world it's like Windows. And when they have to do rendering farm, it's generally Linux. So it's one of those things that when you need like the true horsepower, you have to go x86, like train, moving a lot of people. And when you have to do mobile, basically performance per watt becomes important, you can go to ARM. So that could become two parallel pathway from Microsoft. It's like, hey, do you want performance per watt, or do you want the horsepower? You want horsepower, you go to x86. You want performance per watt for laptop, mobile phones, you go with ARM. So that's one option. And that will be limited by the hardware limitation, meaning if you truly want like AI, you have to buy AI acceleration card from NVIDIA. They are generally the top leading. They will not work well with Apple. So that's the hardware limitation. So software will not be limiting factor, meaning you will not be like, hey, I have to use iOS to get this benefit. Nah, you will have all the options. That's good. Another aspect is, which is very likely to happen, is like Microsoft fails to gain a ARM traction. Basically, ARM penetration fails. Now, what can Microsoft do at that point in time? Just hope that x86 goes beast mode, because be mindful, while x86 have ludicrously long legacy code that they have microcode, as in like on the semiconductor they have to support, they are experienced and they are seriously capable. Someday, if let's say from AMD 7000, they move to like AMD 8000 or 9000, at that point they're like, you know what, one goal: beat ARM system in performance per watt. They could do that. It's not impossible. And because of the legacy history and experience and the continuous trend that they have, and the fact that they are finally starting to grow in multiples rather than like percentage, if they achieve that beast mode happens, at that point in time Apple will become the same thing. Like how iPhone first release was like iPhone, everything else was garbage, and then Android took over. It's like if you really want to do work, basically if you want to do crunch stuff, you have to take Android. It's like how Siri was like, Siri voice was like so amazing, and the launch after 1 year, Google launched is like, Siri is a joke. So that's one of those things could happen after this if x86 goes beast mode, where performance per watt becomes exponentially better, and it does not even have to be too much better, because AMD has made some serious progress recently. So they only have to make it like 2x better. At that point in time, it's like M1, yeah, M1 is for children. If your M1 is for children, you give them the like to do Hulululu. If you want to really work, really play games, really develop for Unreal Engine, really do the VFX work for Hollywood, you come to x86. That can happen. So it will be very tough, expensive few years for Windows, Intel, AMD, basically anything that is attached to x86 is very complicated few years ahead. Now, only time will tell which happens, like parallel development or, x86 finally starts to fade out. That could also happen. And we must want multiple options from economics point of view, from ethics point of view, from options point of view. You always want multiple options. Why the heck x86 did not grow? Because it only had one competitor, AMD. Why did ARM Holdings can somehow make such an amazing processor? Because they have multiple people working at it. For example, Samsung with Exynos, Snapdragon with their, well, Qualcomm with their Snapdragon, I just imported that. MediaTek also is working on that. There are many, many more companies that I'm not even talking about. They are all working. That means company at the top really have to keep pushing themselves harder and harder to stay at top. But Intel was like at a point where it's like, yeah, 14 nanometer plus plus. Security bugs, let's just create a reduced performance variant just to patch the security variant. It's like some of the security leaks that happened with Intel recent times. It's like, wow, kind of bad. So let's hope from everybody's, if everybody wants to win, they have to become a scenario where we have multiple options. Basically, this was another software development kit was released for Qualcomm for Windows. This was Mark 1, the Volterra is Mark 2. So let's see what happens in the future. I do want a scenario where we have multiple options. That is the guaranteed way to make sure that there is no monopoly, there is a choice, there is options. That's the only way we can have good future in the, well, future. So this was my presentation on Windows on ARM. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.